Hey there, newsletter peeps. Thank you so much for joining me for a private, secret, just between you and me kind of YouTube video, which is only available to people who receive my newsletter. So thank you for receiving my newsletter. Thank you for feeling like it's something that you want to get involved with. Thank you for feeling like you want extra content from me. And sorry, I haven't sent anything out in a while. Sorry, not sorry, because I'm working on a really important project and I can't wait to share with you what that project is over the course of time. I'm very giddy about it, but because I'm still keeping up a full schedule of clients with readings and sessions and everything else, and trying to maintain some grasp on some semblance of what you would call a social life, there's definitely not a lot of extra time for things. But sometimes I just feel very moved to put out something specifically as a newsletter video, and today it was talking to me. That voice was coming over me saying, get it out as a newsletter video and say what it is that you really want to say about these things that you're observing and these things that are going on. So I thought I'd make myself a cup of tea. I'm having a cup of yogi tea today. This one is called Immune Support, and I only just purchased it. And I really, really love it. I don't know why it's not zooming in. There we go. So this is a blend of echinacea, cherry and elderberry, and it's got a little bit of a spicy vibe to it actually, which is lovely. It's very warming and comforting. Let me just check. Oh yeah, I was just checking. I've got plenty of room left for this video to be made on my phone. So if you've never experienced having a newsletter video before, I do not edit my newsletter videos. They are raw and uncut. It is just what I'm thinking in the moment. Having said that, to be honest with you, when you see the jump cuts on my YouTube videos, they're not really masking a great deal of mistakes or anything like that. It's just nice for me to have a little bit of breathing room when I'm making videos that are longer than 30 minutes, for example. So the jump cuts are there so that I can relax into it a bit more. I don't feel the pressure so much to get things right first time. And I feel like it's better for me to be able to have the option of jump cuts. I also really like jump cuts. Personally, for me, as long as they're not too very numerous, like every other word sort of thing, I quite like them. I think they provide a slickness to the experience, and I take on the information so much more when I don't have somebody going, let me just think how to word it or whatever. And so even though there will be certain moments like that in my YouTube videos, I do like to have the jump cuts there. The newsletter videos, however, they are totally raw. I'm just going to be rambling to camera and occasionally taking a sip of tea. And what I really wanted to get into, as you will know from the title of the newsletter, I don't know what I'm going to title it yet, but you will know anyway, is Samhain, thinking about this incredible Sabbat that we are coming up for now. And also just thinking, I think, about that sort of holy three of the autumnal festivals, Lunasar, Mabon and Samhain. Now, if you do not celebrate the Wheel of the Year and you're not really interested in these three festivals, don't worry, because I'm not going to be going into a lot of the history of them and what you would do with ritual. I'm talking more about the energy on the Northern Hemisphere at around this time of year. And I know this is going to alienate those of you who are in the Southern Hemisphere, although I do think that Beltane and Samhain, or Beltana and Samhain, if you want to get the pronunciations as correct as we possibly can, they have a lot of things in common. They share a lot of things in common, very much so. So it could still be useful for you in a way, who knows. But I have been having some very strong experiences this particular Samhain, and I do start to feel from Lunasar onwards, and when we go into Mabon and then start to approach Samhain, I do personally start to feel the power of that trinity of Sabbats very much. I feel it in my spiritual life. I feel it in my creative life. I feel it with my relationships. I feel it with my relationship with the divine. I feel it in my body, my physical state of being. And of course, I feel it and see it in the changing season around me, and looking at what can come through to me from the natural realm in terms of lessons and signs and all that good stuff. So a lot of things start to happen. I also start to change or reassess my relationship with my domestic environment, and I start wanting to do a kind of a weird spring clean. Does anybody find that you have the spring clean motivation, or a lot of people do, but then I also have a kind of Samhain clean motivation as well. I just want to get things a bit more organized. So there's definitely that, and that sort of thing that comes around and starts at Lunasar and sort of builds up to Samhain is very magical for me. I do become more spiritually active, not that I'm not spiritually active in the hotter months, but I do find as the temperature starts to cool down that my level of commitment does go up. I do find that there is an increase in spiritual practice, and it's just tiny little things actually, like For instance, I do a daily meditation, and today I finished my daily meditation and I actually immediately went into another one. I went into my favorites on the app that I use, and I picked a favorite meditation that I've done a few times, but I haven't done it in ages. And I wanted to carry on meditating. I wanted to continue with that. And that's the kind of thing that doesn't come to me as often during the summer months. It's really this specific time of year where things start to get colder and the leaves begin to fall. We haven't had falling leaves yet, but we're getting there. And so there is definitely that feeling that I'm more prepared to give more to spiritual practices. And I do also find, as I think a lot of people do, that the degree of focus that they can offer to the signs around them, the synchronicities, the messages, is heightened. Again, I'm not saying I don't receive signs or messages or have spiritual experiences in the hotter months, but when things start to cool down, and especially as we're moving towards this very sacred time in the wheel of the year, I tend to feel that for me, I'm more open to those messages. Perhaps I interpret them more swiftly, and I see immediately the intrinsic meaning and value in them. And I feel sometimes as though I'm really plugged in and the universe is really speaking to me in those straight sentences that I so love and enjoy. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the intensity of this time of year, the intensity for a lot of people spiritually, particularly people who are actually very connected to the energies of Samhain and who, do sort of celebrate with a ritual and are very connected to the associations of Samhain. I wanted to talk about preparing to be challenged. I do Halloween and Samhain readings every year, and if you are watching this newsletter video, then you might have been one of the many people over the course of time who's received a Samhain or Halloween reading from me. Often when I'm doing my Samhain and Halloween readings, I have a little sort of mention at the beginning before I start drawing any cards or before I start gazing into the crystal ball about the significance of the shadow messages that can come through during this time of year. It's like a disclaimer. So normally I'll have, for instance, a piece of black obsidian that I use, that I work with while I'm doing the reading. And I mentioned that the reason that that stone is there is to remind us both in this co-creative working that there could be shadow messages that will come through. And actually there is often a higher likelihood when we're doing a reading that is based on the themes of Samhain and connecting with the themes of Samhain, that shadow content will come through. Challenging messages are more likely to arrive. And I think we have to understand when we're purchasing a reading at this time of year, and it's a reading that's intended to lock into those energies, that we are agreeing to be present. We are agreeing to arrive at the point where we could be confronted by shadow. So it's almost like standing at the open mouth of a cave and recognizing that you are fully in willingness to tackle or meet with or speak with whatever comes to the mouth of that cave, whatever comes trundling out of the darkness, you are prepared for. And so you've got to have your heart open to the messages, but you've also got to have your armor on and your sword held aloft and be ready to confront and combat that which you have been trying to hide away from. And I'm not saying, that you need to kill it dead and not think about it. Quite the opposite. I'm saying that some of the messages that come through will challenge you to really fight against your perceptions of yourself or others in a way that maybe readings that you have at other times of the year don't really challenge you as supremely and as intensely. So we have to be really willing to recognize that if we have a Samhain reading, we're asking for the Samhain shizzle. We're asking for that shadow stuff to come through, and we need to be prepared for that. And I do find that some of the messages are more challenging. Before I do a reading for somebody at any time of year, I'm always showing up to do that reading with the awareness that I want to give even the most challenging messages and warnings with the greatest degree of compassion possible. And I'm aware that at any time of year, those more challenging messages could come through. But there's no doubt in my mind that when we have a Samhain reading, we are asking to be challenged, and we need to be aware of that. And the reason I say all of that is to say that even if you don't have a Samhain or Halloween reading from me or anybody else, even if you don't do one yourself, sometimes it's best to prepare for the actual Sabbath of Samhain by recognizing that you could be challenged. There's something in the air, there's something in the ether that makes it so that those very challenging messages, insights, signs, overheard snippets of conversation, experiences that you might have personally, professionally, intimately, socially, those things are going to be potentially more geared towards challenging you, asking you to confront that which you've been moving away from and shying away from. And so for me, I sort of find that part of my preparation for embracing Samhain and doing the ritual that I want to do and everything else is preparing to be challenged, whether I'm playing with the cards or not, whether I'm asking to be challenged or not. It could be that on the run up to Samhain, and particularly on the days of Samhain, which I consider to be from October 31st right through to November 3rd, is how I acknowledge Samhain. It's a big chunk of time. Acknowledging that that time may provide me with these very hard-hitting, tough insights, and some of which I was not looking for and would have preferred not to receive, is very potent for me. That preparation is important. So wherever you are in terms of the Sabbat of Samhain, whether you do workings, whether you don't, whether you're getting a ritual or reading, whether you're not, I think that preparation shows the respect that you have for this sacred time of year. And it kind of just shows that you want to be aware that this particular point in the seasons can be, wow, very high impact. And I think there's nothing wrong with considering it to be high impact, because then of course it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that you are calling in things that are going to be very powerful for you if you're already deciding that yes, this time of year is very powerful, very potent. I mean, for me, that's undeniable. Your mileage might vary, but for me, it's very much something that I've witnessed over and over again. I wanted to talk about the level of spiritual awareness that can come at this time of year if you are not opening yourself up to the signs and the synchronicities, the clues, the messages from cosmos. Do so, especially if you have questions that need to be answered, especially if you feel like you're in a little bit of a random in-between place where things are uncertain for you right now. Don't be afraid to recognize that this is a particularly powerful part of the calendar where you may have access to spiritual insights and messages that can help you to get those questions answered. So if you are not opening up more, if you're not, for instance, opening up in the morning when you're sat at the altar or when you're standing under the shower head, open up. One of the things that I really love to do in the morning with my altar work is to make myself a receptacle for wisdom to come through, for spirit to come through, for insight to reach me. And I say, I am a receptacle for whatever spirit has to say that's in my highest good. I'm open. I want the messages. So it's almost like I'm making myself into that open bowl. I'm saying I'm willing, I'm ready, I want what's going to come to me. I'm not going to be in resistance to it. I'm going to be a match for it in every way. My intention is to learn. And when I say that, I'm so much more open to the insights and the messages. It's amazing. And I don't fear them. I don't fear the Reaper. I let those messages come to me and I let them shift my perception of what I was previously thinking about something. I let them kill my sense of what I was right about, and I let them make me stand on the precipice and teeter a little bit and actually enjoy that rather than clenching tightly and thinking, no, I don't want this, I don't want what this is telling me. I think it's better to just open yourself up, and I think there's no better time on the wheel of the year really to do that than in the run up to Samhain, because the veil is so thin, and the veil is really thin at Beltane as well. For those of you who are on the southern hemisphere and are deciding to watch me anyway, or just feeling weird about where you are on the wheel of the year whatsoever, or even how much you can really bring it into your practice. If you're watching this and it's more of a Beltane situation for you, then that's also a time where you can really experience those insights coming through from your deities, from your spirit guides, from your animal allies, from your ancestors, from the cosmos around you, from the seasons, from nature. Whatever paradigm you follow, you don't need to follow my paradigm to get where I'm coming from with this at all. And the other thing I really wanted to mention about Samhain that has been so interesting for me, particularly this year, is that when I do my readings, whether it's this time of year, whether it's any time of year, I tend to find at certain moments that I'm getting the same message for a lot of different clients. And I usually assume that that is something to do with astrology. And when I look into it, I very often find that it is something that is to do with planetary alignments. And I think, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so the way things are right now could definitely be influencing that. I also think culture influences that. I think that what we absorb in the news and what we absorb with art influences that. I think a lot of things influence it. But one thing that's been interesting for me with the Samhain and Halloween readings this year is that there's been a recurring theme that's come through for quite a few of my clients, and I can't ignore it. And I've even started to mention this to some of my clients when I'm actually breaking down the interpretation of it to them. The last couple of clients I've had this with, I've been like, honestly, this keeps coming up. It's not just you. It's a lot of different people I'm reading for, and it's really interesting. So basically, the message that I keep getting for people for Samhain and Halloween readings, one of them, obviously, there's a great many messages in a standard reading that I do, but one that keeps coming through is emerging potential, and actually the awareness, liminal at first, sort of on the periphery at first, and then coming in more and more and more of that emerging potential and the bubbling over of that potential. That is something that is really strongly coming through for a number of different clients in different situations with very different lives, and it's different card combinations. It's just something that is really, I've noticed, a running theme with the Samhain and Halloween messages this year. And I really like that. I love that idea because it is so Samhain to think that this particular time of year, the approach to this particular time of year, could bring up for a great many of us that bubbling feeling of, I'm going to do something. I can fucking do something. I can do it. Oh my goddess, it's really coming. It's strong. It's getting stronger. It's the momentum, the progression. I'm feeling it. It's going to come out of my mouth. It's going to come out of my heart. It's going to come out of my body. And I have to go with it. I can't be in resistance to it because that would be a betrayal of myself. I've got to let it come through. That energy is very prevalent with my readings I'm doing at this time of year, which is so cool and interesting. And I wanted to mention that because it's something that's really been inspiring me. The idea of thinking about the approach of Samhain and the Sabbat of Samhain as a time where, yes, the veil is thin between the living and the dead. Yes, the veil is thin between the magical and the mundane. Yes, the veil is thin between light and shadow. But what about if the veil is also thin between your hidden potential and your materializing potential? What if the veil is thin between what you have not managed to make manifest yet and what you have? What if it's that turning point where you actually sort of like stick your staff in the ground and say, now, it's now. Now is the time to do something. And you have that easy crossover because the veil is thin. So it's like there's less resistance to what it is that needs to come through and you can really arrive to it. I think Samhain could definitely give people that feeling and that ability. And if you are feeling like there's a bubbling up of your potential, there's something that you are capable of doing now that for whatever number of reasons you previously were not capable of doing, let that be a part of your reality as you emerge and sort of head towards this Sabbat. Let that be something that you believe could be possible for you. To me, I just felt like it's so interesting that this keeps coming through. It's so interesting that this is something that I'm getting for client after client in some cases. This incredible sort of encouraging insight that, like, yes, you have this potential that's been bubbling under for a while. Yes, it is a potential that you previously perhaps could not have harnessed as you are able to do right now. And yes, it is not in your imagination. It is a real thing. And Samhain will be the key that fully allows you to unlock it. You know, you've got to go with it. If you're in resistance to it, if you're in fear, then the fact that it's coming up for Samhain won't make any fucking difference. You have to let it happen. But I think the idea that there is so much bubbling potential for so many of us is a very exciting thing. Very exciting thing. And I'm loving to see that. I really am. If there's a little bit of a tiny jump in the footage in a second, guys, or a minute or so, it's because for some reason the footage, the software that I'm using at the moment, or the app that I'm using at the moment, does need to be stopped at about the 20-minute mark, I would say, and a new video needs to be done. Otherwise you get just a tiny little inconvenient jump. But I'm not going to stop the footage because I really just want to put this up raw. So if there's a little bit of a glitch, that's why. This cup is so old, but obviously I'm never going to get rid of it until it breaks or disintegrates. So obviously, one thing that I don't think this video could be complete without is talking about how Samhain is a time for us to look into our shadows. Now, shadow work is an all-round thing. Shadow work is evergreen. I mean, it's going to keep doing what it needs to do, and you need to approach it whenever you need to approach it without fail. It can't be about waiting until Samhain, of course, and it can't be about putting it away after Imbolc or whatever. Like, look, if you've got to do it, you've got to do it. It's something that's got to be done. But I would say Samhain is an incredible time where we can almost pick up on that collective energy of a bunch of us together all doing that kind of reflective work. And let's face it, a lot of people are doing that reflective work, whether they know they're doing it or not. A lot of people don't know that they're doing that reflective work. So I sometimes sort of get high off of the feeling of lots of people doing shadow work together. Now, obviously, I'm a part of the community, the witchy community and the self-development community, the psycho-spiritual world, if you will, where a lot of us do think of this time of year on the Northern Hemisphere as a great time to do shadow work. And so I suppose it's, for me, I can feel more literally that lovely collective energy that's going on when a bunch of people all agree with themselves that they're going to do that, and there's videos made about it and stuff. But I feel like it's the same as the turnover into the new year with the Gregorian calendar, where I think a lot of people that aren't spiritual, or, you know, they don't have a spiritual path per se, they wouldn't consider themselves to be spiritual, are feeling the buzzy, fizzy butterflies of the new year energy, and I can get high off of that. I can feel that that is what is going on for them. Now with Samhain, I feel a similar thing, where I know I'm walking around in the day surrounded by loads of people who don't celebrate Samhain, maybe don't know what Samhain is, maybe they don't even take Halloween as a holiday they really enjoy. I mean, why that would be, I don't fucking know, but that's how some people are. And yet I can feel this reflective energy, this energy of contemplation and deepening coming from them because of the changing of the seasons, the trees becoming bare, that feeling of things dying, and the mulch and the petrichor, the very heavy rains, the thunder, the nights closing in, less light, less warmth. It is really about hibernating psycho-spiritually, going within and doing some of that deep work that maybe you might even have left behind this time last year. Put it away, and maybe you're returning back to it. And of course, the triggers of the smells, the sights, the sounds of autumn are very, you know, they are very reminiscent of whatever was going on last year or even years before. So there's a lot of work going on for people who aren't necessarily savvy with Samhain or shadow work or whatever. And I can really enjoy connecting with that energy just around me in general, of people being more contemplative and allowing that power to come over them without naming it and without being very conscious of it. But I feel it around me, you know, just that reflection, that depth of beingness, that more deliberate beingness for a lot of people, and the arriving at just how tangible and how palpable the season change really is at this time of year. So there's that to the equation as well. I feel that for me, it is a time for me to do shadow work more diligently. It is a time to think about what has been going on for me that I'm not bringing to the surface, and how can I put it to the table and shine a light onto it. But it's also about recognizing I feel a lot of people are doing that, and I feel less alone in doing it myself then. So just some things to think about, basically. Whether you are going to be celebrating or recognizing Samhain or not, or whether you're just going to be doing some trick-or-treating with your kids or just enjoying Halloween decorations, I just want to thank you for watching this video and taking the time to go through some contemplations with me. And if you do want to book a Halloween or Samhain reading with me, I'm going to leave the link to my 6 options in the down bar beneath this video, darling. So if you, as a newsletter subscriber, would like to come along and do some work with me and dive even deeper in, you can definitely do that. Darlings, thank you so much for coming and watching this video. And if you have comments, please leave them down below, and please don't be afraid to get into a discussion with others who receive my newsletter videos as well. It won't be too long before I'm back in your inbox with more goodness, and blessed Samhain and blessed be. Mwah.